Even my 8-year-old daughter can crunch the economics of paid ads in e-commerce. It's pretty simple. You just need to understand your gross profit. Let's imagine that a typical order that crashes through your checkout is worth $100 in revenue. Now we just need to net out of that $100 our variable expenses. Now you know an expense is variable if it scales up and down incrementally with the volume of orders sold and the number of units produced. The very first variable expense is going to be our landed cost. Now, landed cost comprises 4 different expenses. The first one is COGS, the second one is forward freight, third one import duties, and the fourth one the cost of receiving the inventory either into your 3PL or if you're fulfilling from home then into your garage or your office or whatever. Now I'm going to estimate landed cost in this case is $20 out of our $100 or 20% of that margin. Now, after we have all of our inventory ready to sell, the next cost of doing business is converting the order, and that means transaction fees. And so they're going to help themselves to around 2%. So let's say that is $2 of our $100 order. The next cost of business is fulfilling that order to the customer. So that means pick, pack, ship, and I'm going to estimate that to be $7 of our margin. And then finally, the next cost of business we need to account for will be refunds. So I'm estimating that for every 100 orders we fulfill, one of those orders come back to us and then we need to refund that order back to the customer. So I'm going to say that's 1% or $1 out of our total margin. So now we just add all those numbers up and we subtract them from revenue. So 100 minus 20, 80, 78, 71, $70 of gross profit is what we have to play with. Now, once we know that number, this all gets very simple. So essentially, if we went out and bought customers using paid ads, if we spent $70 to acquire a customer, we would generate $0 of contribution margin. We would basically break even on ads. If we spent $75 to acquire the customer, we would lose $5 of margin on acquiring that customer. Now that's a deliberate strategy of some businesses because they expect to recoup that loss over the next 30 to 60 to 90 days, right? But I don't recommend you worry about that at this point in time. I recommend you focus on healthy first order profit if you want to keep things conservative and if you want to be able to scale aggressively from the beginning. And then finally, let's say you spend $65 to acquire a customer, then you're going to generate $5 of contribution margin per an order, which you contribute to meeting your fixed operating expenses and ultimately turning a net profit. Now, I know what you're thinking, $5 doesn't sound like very much, but when we stack $5 of contribution margin on top of $5, on top of $5, on top of $5, eventually, once we do enough order volume, we're going to be able to scale past our fixed operating expenses. Remember, fixed operating expenses don't scale up and down with the order volume or the unit volume. They stay relatively fixed. So if we do enough order volume, if we buy enough traffic and we produce contribution margin predictably and profitably, we stack enough contribution margin to scale past fixed operating expenses and turn a net profit.